Good evening. Welcome to the City of Sugar Land City Council meeting for Tuesday, November the 19th. A little bit about our agenda tonight. In a minute, we're going to have an invocation and a pledge by Mayor Pro Tem Carol McCutcheon, and then we're going to have a couple recognitions. I'm going to go a little bit off schedule tonight. I'm going to ask everybody to rise. Earlier today, we attended a funeral for a young man that I truthfully didn't know. It was one of our employees. It was his son. His name's Timothy John. And his son, Chandler, passed away in a motorcycle accident. He was 21 years old. And after my wife and I went to that funeral, I can tell you this was one extraordinary young man. So I'd like to have a moment of silence to keep Chandler and the John family in our thoughts and our prayers. Thank you. Carol, are you ready for the invocation and the pledge?
I am, Mayor. Heavenly Father, we're reminded at this time of year to slow down and give thanks for all of our many blessings. Tonight, we want to give thanks to you for your love and grace. We give thanks for our families and loved ones. Thank you for our homes, our city staff, in particular our first responders, our wonderful city, our veterans and active duty military, our great state, and our great nation. Father, cause our hearts to swell with gratitude next week as we celebrate Thanksgiving. Renew our spirits and fill us with your peace and joy. And please wrap your loving arms around the John family. May we, as city leaders, approach our work tonight and at every meeting with humility, compassion, and gratitude. May you be honored and pleased by the way we serve and conduct ourselves. We make this request with truly grateful hearts. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. Now join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Good evening. Our first recognition is Quilting for Fun, and I'm going to take the quilt that has been given to the City of Sugar Land in commemoration of our 60th anniversary, and I can tell you when I came in, this will put a smile on your face. And this was on my desk, and in a minute I'm going to get these ladies up so they can look at it. That's the front. And there's the back, the flag of our great nation. So ladies, could you come down front, please? Miss Kimberly? Can you introduce these ladies to us?
Absolutely, Mayor. At our T.E. Harmon Senior Center, all of our classes are run by remarkable volunteers. This class is run by Miss Connie Guyton. This class is Quilting for Fun, and this group of 30 to 4 ladies is remarkable. Not only are they presenting this quilt to you here tonight, but they've had an ongoing relationship with Animal Services, with donating to the shelter. They make, it's pillows, right? You make pillows. And they've also just completed, I understand, a quilt that they're donating to the Arc of Fort Bend County for their upcoming auction.
That's this weekend. It's coming up.
So this quilt that they're presenting here tonight, they've been working on for about 3 months. 12 of them have been working on it, and it was inspired by the 60th anniversary, and all of their pieces were to commemorate sort of what Sugar Land means to them.
There you go, ladies. You want to hold it?
And I'm going to turn this over to Connie if she wants to explain a little bit more about it.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Well, yes, every block is just something that the quilter loves about Sugar Land. And some of them are things that are happening now. Some of the things are reminiscent of what Sugar Land was before it was even a city. The fields, are way back. There's patriotic things in it because there were always 4th of July parades and right. So a lot of these ladies have lived here since Sugar Land just began. I lived in Eagle Lake down the street or down the road from Sugar Land when it was just a factory town. So this town has just grown and blossomed, and this represents a lot of the blossoming. One of the things I want to point out that you cannot all see at the bottom right-hand corner represents the sugar factory. All those little windows that represent the char house.
Yes, ma'am.
The library.
The library, I'm enamored of the library system. So,
The ranches.
Yep, the ranches, the sweet, sugar, of course, the flowers, the wildflowers. It's just everybody had a different focus.
Well, and you guys gave me a great card. That inside that card was cards explaining what each of the squares was. So when I came in this afternoon, I got a chance to take the cards and then try to see if I can match up which one of those was the illustration and what was on that card. So I want to thank you, one, for donating that. We're gonna hang that proudly in our lobby. We'll have to figure out a way so that we can get these up there so that people will understand. But it sure was fun this afternoon to come in and see a recognition of our 60 years of history and your interpretation of that. Thank you very much. And we've got a Quilt for Fun proclamation. City of Sugar Land's 60th anniversary, T.E. Harmon Senior Center, Quilting for Fun. Whereas Quilting for Fun at T.E. Harmon Senior Center has completed a quilt under the direction of Connie Guyton and Sandy Penman in celebration of the city's 60th anniversary. Whereas each quilter completed a square depicting their fond memories of Sugar Land, and the individual squares came together as a class produced a quilt honoring the place that brought them all together, Sugar Land. And whereas Quilting for Fun has chosen to donate the quilt, which will be displayed at a city facility, my office, during the upcoming, no, I'm just kidding, it'll be in the lobby, during the upcoming 60th anniversary celebration. And I really want to thank you for this, not only all the love that went into this, but the fact that you guys brought this to the city of Sugar Land. We get to display it proudly in the lobby. Over here, we'll get everybody in the picture, and y'all hold the quilt. Yeah, there you go. Council.
Sandy is the one who brought up this idea for us to do.
Well, there we have it right there. Come on, come on. We got to have everybody in here.
This wouldn't have happened if she hadn't
Yeah.
said, well, I don't want to think about it.
Sandy Penman.
The bottom just, because we want our faces.
Definitely want your faces.
Right.
All right, Barry, look it up here, please. We're going to take a couple. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Last one. 1, 2, 3. All right, got it.
My mother will be so happy.
Oh, thank y'all. And thank y'all. Yeah, this is beautiful. My little granddaughter would love to have this. Let me get organized here. Our second recognition is engaging local government leaders, the Members' Choice and Most Creative Awards, and it's, Kayla, I'll get you to explain this. I'm going to get Kayla up here. I'm not a pound City Hall selfie kind of whatever that is.
I know, that's my job, right?
There you go, ma'am.
We won these 2 accolades for City Hall Selfie Day 2019. And as you said, the ELGL is an organization that really likes to promote pride in what local public servants do. And so they host City Hall Selfie Day each year. And so we figured, why not? We're going to give it a shot and see if we can take home a win. And one of the best parts of my job is showcasing our amazing staff. And we're also home to the selfie statue. So I feel like we had the ingredients to succeed here. So what Jake and I did, many of you know Jake Schnitzer, we decided to go with a Where's Waldo theme, where we asked a bunch of staff to come here and actually act out what the selfie statue is doing, and we had people guess where the real selfie statue was. And so that got us both the Most Creative and the Members' Choice Award for City Hall Selfie Day. So we're very excited about it.
So this is what happens when the millennials take over City Hall.
It is.
And we do have, in all seriousness, our social media is like no other. We have people in every department that are engaged with Cindy, with her team, with Kayla, and they do an unbelievable job of getting the word out, not only of all the activities, but also generating the excitement around what Sugar Land is and what it means to all of us, which all comes together for the 60th anniversary. So, Kayla, thank you. Here, let's get a picture. Cindy, come on.
Yes, Cindy, come on. And then I think Jake, the man behind the curtain, who
Jake,
produces our meetings, is going to run out here as well for our picture. And of course, for City Hall Selfie Day, we're not going to do a normal picture. We're going to take
Come on,
a
City Council,
selfie
come on down front.
all together.
Come on, Jake.
Here, looks good.
Your hair is going to be
Yeah,
fine.
I'm not used to being on this side of the camera.
Okay, we'll
We're
do.
going to take 2, one with this camera, then we're going to switch to selfie, guys. All right, 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Hold on just a second.
Uh-oh, here it is.
We have to do it right.
We got to do it, yeah. I knew that was coming.
Are you ready? Work. All right.
There you go, Roman.
3. All right, sweet.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kayla. You see me. I noticed that we have a number of people that want to speak, and we're certainly willing to accommodate each and every one of you. I've got the names. If I know that there are a number, after looking through, we've got a number of people with the Mountain Bike Association that wants to speak. I'm going to presume that they want to speak in favor of. I would suggest, it's not a request, suggest that maybe one of you speak for the organization rather than everybody come down. But if in fact you each want to speak, that's fine. We'll accommodate that. I'm going to go through it just the way it's been ordered to me. You'll be, of course, there is no limit on the number of people. You'll be given 3 minutes. If you'll come down, name, where you live, and then whatever you'd like to say to council. Our first guest is the chair of the Parks Advisory Board, Miss Barbara Brescian. Barbara, come on down.
Mr. City Manager, I'm Barbara Brescian. I live at 1922 Country Club Boulevard in Sugar Land, and I'm here tonight as chairman of the city's Parks Advisory Board. We had the opportunity over the last 4 of our board meetings to hear presentations and to review information on the draft license agreement with the Fort Bend Mountain Bike Association. We are fortunate to have public comment, both private citizens representing themselves and their families. A lot of the folks have kids that really enjoy mountain biking, as well as organizations came and talked to us. We had very healthy conversation among board members ourselves about the agreement, and we had a hand in drafting the license agreement with the Fort Bend Mountain Bike Association. And the board did vote to recommend to move forward for this to be something that the City Council would consider. So I was pleased to present that information to you and to let you know that we were very pleased with the community input that we had that really helped us in fine-tuning that license agreement that you have in your packet tonight. Thank you.
And Barbara, I think that was unanimous recommendation from the Park Board, correct?
It was 6-1. 2 were not present.
Okay. Thank you, Barbara. Our second guest tonight is Susan Correa. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Susan?
Thank you. So I'm a resident of 2439 Oyster Loop Drive, Sugar Land, Texas, 77478. Okay. So hi, I'm Susan, mother of 3 active boys, Cub Scout den leader, and resident on Plantation Bend. I'm here to tell the City Council and my neighbors my own experience with nature trails. When I lived in San Antonio, our previous neighborhood had access to a Leon Creek Greenway Trail. Those trails are a lot longer than Sugar Land nature trails, but the experience and feel on those trails are the same. The feeling of excitement, wonder, and accomplishment of tackling the nature trail should be an opportunity for everyone here a chance to experience. Whether you're an expert bike rider, runner, retiree, or like my son here, who's learning that being outdoors is important to a healthy lifestyle. Exploring unpaved trails give my son an opportunity to hear, see, and smell the works of nature that he doesn't get in a classroom setting. My son told me when we were out on the trail that he loved hearing the squishy sound that his shoe made while stepping on mud. Even my little one can benefit from a nature trail. He tells his preschool friends how he can tell from a female versus a male cardinals because he was close enough to see the difference while out on the trails. You know, my house right now backs into the Oyster Creek paved trails. From my kitchen, I can see the trail, and I can tell you bikers, walkers, and joggers are naturally respectful to each other. Even the alligators sunbathing near the creek. All the years I live along the trail, the bikers, strollers, and walkers are always been respectful and kept the path clean. With the help of a nonprofit organization, FBMBA, managing those unpaved trails will surely aid and benefit the community at large. Working alongside a nonprofit and Parks and Recs can bring guidance and even a partnership with school and community environment clubs such as 4-H, Clemens Earth, Dulles Green Club, and the various Scout in this area. All these organizations' mission is all about helping the environment awareness and community engagement. As past neighborhood reps of Plantation Bend, we also believe in nearby access to any nature trail is a selling point to any homeowner. Majority of my neighbors praise that we have access to these trails. Even one neighbor told me their own firsthand experience with the Fort Bend Mountain Bike Association. This neighbor lived on Pebble Creek just past the entrance to West Side Court and their house back into the creek. They mentioned that several months ago, the volunteers worked hard clearing path in the back during a weekend. This was very good news and told their friends and neighbors about it. However, the excitement for a prospect of trail access within walking distance from their home was taken away and fenced off 2 days after that encounter. Majority of the neighbors of Plantation Bend agreed an increase of nature trails would all benefit us. In summary, the positive outweighs any potential concern that had been brought up here or before. Before I end this, I challenge the Fort Bend Mountain Bike Association, Parks and Recs, and the City Council to do your best. Do your best to provide the best possible outcome for the community, that we can all enjoy the beauty that nature gives us through the outdoor trails. Thank you for your time and support.
Thanks, Susan. Our next guest is Bradford Cargis.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here. My name is Bradford Cargus. I live in Magnolia Plantation, which backs up to the Oyster Creek Trail Park. In 2015, we moved to Sugar Land from downtown Houston. When we came here, we were really just focused on finding a great place to raise our children. Where we lived before, we couldn't easily access parks without loading everything and everyone up into the vehicle and driving somewhere. Having large open green spaces for the kids to play freely and safely was one of our top priorities. I first became aware of the mountain bike trails quite a while ago and began using them for exercise. I found having the space in such close proximity to my home has made it easy to get outside, enjoy the outdoors, and it no longer felt like a chore to get the kids out of the house for fun. While the majority of my time has been spent on the trails on my mountain bike, since discovering the trails, I've used them regularly to walk my dogs and to practice photography on the many birds that live along the creek. In 2018, I even used this trail to train for my first Xterra triathlon. I've spent a large amount of time with my two children sitting over there on the trail. As a matter of fact, my daughter's first ride on a mountain bike trail was the section right behind my house, while I ran as fast as I could trying to keep up behind her. Over the previous 2 school years, my children and I took part of the trail segment home from school every day. My son, who loves to mountain bike, has been riding the trails many times with me, and by the time he was 8, he was able to ride the trail from end to end without walking any of the sections. The trails found in Oyster Creek and Lost Creek Parks are a great addition to this area. Some of my fondest childhood memories are from riding trails near my home with my friends, and having these trails near our home now helps me pass those past experiences on to my children. I respectfully ask that the multi-use trails in Oyster Creek and Lost Creek Park become officially added to the Sugar Lands Park system for everybody to enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Bradford. Our next guest is Terry Gorney.
Good evening, and thank you for letting me have the opportunity to speak tonight. I was last here in September when you so kindly recognized Fort Bend Fit for its 20th anniversary. Fort Bend Fit has 532 members this year, and we're a marathon training program. We like to say we run this town as we run the streets and all of the trails in the Sugar Land area. We greatly love running on the trails. It is so nice to be on them. It's a lot safer on our knees as we get older, and we love the beauty and being out in nature. I'm not here today to talk to you about running a marathon, but I'm here to just let you know how much we enjoy the trail systems in Sugar Land, and we especially love the trails in Oyster Creek Park. In fact, when we started 20 years ago, that was one of our very first routes. So I respectfully ask you to consider the workshop number 7A, I believe it is. Yes, we support that. There's 532 of us this year. You see us running all up and down the sidewalks of the city and in the trail system. And so thank you, and please, please consider. We so greatly appreciate what the Parks Advisory Board has put together, and we're not mountain bikers, but we are on those trails with those guys, and we're in harmony out there together. So thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Our next guest is Anthony Buber.
Anthony Baber. Oh, I'm a little taller than she was. Anthony Baber. I'm actually a resident of Sugar Land, proud resident of Sugar Land. Live at 1311 Tahoe Valley Lane. I'm just up here to say thank you. I'm actually a founding member of Fort Bend Mountain Bike Association. I'm the vice chairman. I think I'm the only person from the actual organization here to speak today. Everybody else is doing this on their own accord, and I'm a little bit overwhelmed. So I came up here just to say thank you.
Everybody else out riding those trails.
So I've got several thank yous. And first and foremost, I'm thanking all these people sitting here behind me, because this is who makes these trails possible. These people, they're professionals, and on their time off, they would much rather be riding their bikes and going through the woods than picking up a shovel or a rake or doing paperwork or coming to meetings. I promise they'd much rather be doing that. But they've made the sacrifices, they volunteered their time and their efforts and their expertise to get us to this point. Second, I'd like to thank Mayor Joe Zimmerman and Joe Chesser. Honestly, just a couple of guys who like to ride bikes come in and sit down and have a meeting with them, and they go, well, you know, you need to do better. And without their encouragement, I don't think we would have started the task of creating a nonprofit from scratch. It's not an easy thing to do. So, you know, if you want to burn a couple of years, take that up. And then next, I'd like to thank the rest of the Parks and Rec Department, because they sat down with us, they were so patient, and they shared their expertise, and they went back and forth with us, and they were really just dedicated to finding a process that would allow for safe and well-maintained trails in this great city. And then following that, not to be left out, I'd like to thank the entire Parks Board. They took input from the community, they listened to us, they examined it from every possible angle to make sure everything was well taken care of and reviewed. And with their overwhelming support, that's how I know we're on the right track, because they really did a thorough review. And then I'd like to thank the community itself, because that's who is out on these trails, because I'm out there riding and walking, and I see parents and grandparents with kids of all ages out there. We see Boy Scout troops earning merit badges out there for nature and mountain biking and all kinds of stuff. We see trail runners and dog walkers out there getting to use previously inaccessible parts of our parks. And that's a big deal for us. And that's what these trails mean to us, and that's what this stewardship means to us. It's an opportunity to ensure that Sugar Land is healthier and a happier place to live for everyone. So finally, thank you for your consideration and your trust in us to help make Sugar Land an even more of a destination community than it already is.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Our next guest is Mr. John Adams.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is John Adams. I live at 4210 Waterside Court in Missouri City, and I am a retired Navy veteran of 23 years. And during active duty, I conducted many operations, over 9 combat deployments, starting from Panama, ending in Enduring Freedom. A lot of these deployments, there's a lot of combat stress that happens, and you deal with that differently in deployment, but when you get home, we handle that even more completely different, because you're trying to deal with the hospitals and the people. And a lot of veterans reach out to each other, and you don't want to go to the bar. You know, that's the worst thing you can do. So what we've done is we reach out to the people, we say, come out, let's go for a hike, let's go hiking, let's go skiing, let's go mountain biking. And a lot of these guys, they don't have mountain bikes. And Yellowbird, a local veteran mountain biking group, we can fix that. They reach out to the bike shops, they reach out to the fellow mountain bike riders, and they find a bike for them that fits them. And they teach them safety, they give them helmets, they give them clothes, they give them, for mountain biking, and then they get together and we talk about the stresses and how they're handling it and how to deal with the VA and how to adapt with family issues, oh my God, the wife's killing me. Oh, the kids aren't talking to me, and they help. How do you handle that? And that's been a really good thing for me, having retired 6-7 years ago, and then also riding along with these veterans that are coming back off deployment that are dealing with it. And I rode with one, let me get all choked up here, recently, and he, on the borderline of losing his family, losing his kids, losing his job, he reached out to Yellowbird Mountain Biking Association, and they got him a bike, they got him a helmet, They got out riding. They got him some help. They got him talking, which is what he wasn't doing. He wasn't communicating, but he got around his peers. And that's what that is for me on the trails, is getting out and meeting other veterans and meeting other people. And Fort Bend Mountain Biking Association has been great. There's not a time I go out there I don't run into somebody wearing a Fort Bend Mountain Biking Association shirt, and I love it. And they're very friendly, very talkative. So I look forward to the many, many more rides that I can do in introducing more veterans to the trails here in Sugar Land in Missouri City. So it's very excited about that. And I wanted to say, please vote yes for 7A.
Yes,
and to use the mountain bike trails for the hikers and the bikers and the dogs. And I just love seeing people. I love seeing the kids out there. When you see the kids out there, I mean, you just want to high five them. Hey man, high five. And they're just so excited to be out there. It's really good. It's really good. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you for your service, John.
Thank you.
Trey Lim.
Good evening. Thank you, council members, Mayor Zimmerman. My name is Trey Lyon. I live in the Creekshire subdivision, right behind Lost Creek Park. There's nothing I can say that hasn't already been said. I'm a founding member of the Fort Bend Mountain Bike Association. I'm also a geologist. I'm also a loving husband, and I live right next to these trails. I'll go ahead and keep it brief. Anthony covered a lot of what I wanted to say, and the people that are invested in this community span so much further than just mountain biking. This is a net benefit for so many other facets of our community. So thank you for hearing us all today. I know this many speakers is probably atypical, so we appreciate your consideration of this proposal for a maintenance agreement for the Oyster Creek Trails and the trails along the Brazos River.
Thank you, Trey. Our next guest is Ryan Stroll.
Thank you for the opportunity, but I'm not going to speak.
Hey, Ryan.
They said it. Hello. Nice to see you.
Good to see you. And if you didn't sign one of these, that doesn't mean you can't speak. Our next guest, this is actually our final guest that filled out a form, is Claire Johnston.
Yeah, that's fine. They said it all. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Well, thank you, Claire. Is there anyone else? Please, come on, sir.
Hello, my name is Roger Elizondo. I'm a resident of New Territory on 919 Whitby Court. I am a Scoutmaster of Troop 1616.
Yes, sir.
And I'm a merit badge counselor for cycling. The Eagle Scout is the highest rank that you could achieve in that particular organization. And one of those, which was the cycling merit badge, is a required merit badge for that rank. It ties in really well with what we do as far as what we're talking about today. The outdoor code is something that's very dear to the Scouts, and the association does a really good job of maintaining a healthy outdoor code. And we really have been working over the past 3 years exclusively in the trail along the Brazos River because they've been well maintained. The association does a really good job of working with organizations like us to inform us if the trails are not running well or not. And we found the benefit to not be able to get our bikes and take our Scouts to trails along the north side of Houston where we could just go to our backyards, right? So we find it beneficial. We really hope that you vote in favor of 7A, and we want to thank them for the service that they provide for us. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Yes, sir. Would you like to speak?
I'll save my speech, but I would just like to ask those that are here associated with Fort Bend Mountain Biking Association to please stand just to show our numbers. you.
Thank you all. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Andy Ushold. I live at 1714 Coles Farm. I've served the city in a couple of different capacities, but I'm here today to not only thank the Mountain Biking Association for taking this on, but would like to also encourage later in the consent agenda on item E as an item to study the expansion of those hike and bike trails. And as everyone's spoken, I fell in love with Sugar Land with the Lost Creek and Oyster Creek Park trails and love that, that passageway. I'm also the father of 2 children that play sports there. And we live further up the creek. And riding our bike to Lost Creek Park just to play soccer becomes a take your life in your hands moment because there's not any trails to connect that. My son played for many years at First Colony Little League. And while we can connect on the trails, once we get there, crossing Highway 6 with a 7-year-old and a backpack with his baseball glove in it, just to get to the path is a very scary situation, even with his dad helping him. We love to come here, and I work just down the road, and I'd love to be able to ride my bike to work. But there's no way for me to cross Highway 59 safely on my bike. I encourage you as you go through and you look at consent agenda E, it comes with some serious consideration to not put the additional paths on the street, but to continue along the original plans of that referendum, to put these bike paths where everyone can appreciate them and enjoy being able to know the difference between a male and a female cardinal, or seeing an alligator sunbathe, or to just enjoy taking their kid to a baseball game. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on any of the agenda items tonight?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry I filled out a form. Hey, my name's William Ferguson. I'm so grateful for all of you. I'm also very grateful Rick Miller's here tonight. He's one of my buddies from the state. Andy and I have to give full disclosure. I know Andy well, and Andy absolutely loves the city of Sugar Land. He works so hard as a volunteer with the city. And Andy, thank you for that service, because I know he wears it on his sleeve every time I talk to him about issues with the city. And as some of you are looking at me right now going, he could never ride the MS 150, but I've actually ridden it about 5 times. I'm accustomed to riding on the roadway, and it is dangerous at best with the way young people and older people text and carry on with their phones. It is very dangerous. So I just wanted to second Andy's comment. If there's any way, and I'm not saying Bentonville, Arkansas is any better than Sugar Land by far. If there's any way we can start linking the city of Sugar Land so that folks like Andy that does live so close to his work and would love to get on his bike and not get run down, I sure wish you guys could work through that with these teams. These volunteers, Mayor, they're so excited about this city, and I love how you guys encourage them to be a part of that. So I just wanted to come up and second Andy. I think that was a great looking back at E. So thank you guys for the opportunity.
Thank you, William. Is there anyone else? If not, we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the consent agenda. Item number 3, consent agenda. All these items are going to be taken as one item. I'm going to pull item 3C. So we'll now take a motion, unless one of the other council members wants to pull another item. I'm going to pull that one item. We'll take that separately, and I'll take a motion for the other items.
Motion approved, Mayor.
Got a motion by Gandhi, second by McCutcheon. Your vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you. Item number 3C, consideration of an action on authorizing the execution of a contract with Pacheco Koch Consulting Engineers in the amount of $566,690 for professional services for the Ditch H Hike and Bike Trails Project, CIP PK 1702, and we have with us our own Keisha Seals, the engineering manager.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'd be happy to entertain any clarifying questions that you may have regarding the project.
Yeah, Keisha, why don't you go into the background that you and Jesse and I talked about when I had the question originally. Kind of go through, we've got some new council members, go through the background of the, the park bonds.
Absolutely.
What happened and how we ended up here, and then what changes have been made.
Absolutely. So before I get into that, I would like to acknowledge Patrick Owens, who is an associate principal as well as the project manager for the Ditch H Trail. Patrick. Okay.
Welcome, Patrick.
Pacheco Koch, they are a full-service civil engineering, architectural, and land surveying consulting engineering firm. They were established in 1990 in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They currently have about 200 plus employees. They established a consulting firm here in the Houston metropolitan area in 2014, and that Houston office has about 20 employees, and they are continuing to add. Their Dallas office, as well as Fort Worth, Austin, Houston, as well as Salina, majority of them are in the northern part of Texas, but they still do have a Houston area here and a presence here. Back in 2016, we did go through an RFQ process for the 2013 Parks Bond projects, and Pacheco Koch actually won the project back then, and the contract was awarded in June of 2017 to Pacheco Koch. Patrick was the original project manager. He is still the project manager today. As you know, the council at that time elected to terminate all the contracts for the 2013 park bond projects, and so we did terminate our project with Pacheco Koch. And then, of course, our current council so graciously allowed us to pick up the 2013 parks bond projects for FY20, and so we essentially just reached out to Pacheco Koch because they were the original consulting engineering firm, and asked them to present a proposal for the remaining portion of the project. At the time that we canceled the project, they were about 10% complete. Several of the reasons why we selected them to begin with is, one, they had extensive trail project knowledge, as well as projects that they had completed, and as well as, and more importantly for us, the public engagement side, which was really important for the Ditch H project, which we know is something essential to the success of the project, and we were looking for someone that could really deliver an extensive public engagement process for us. And then finally, they have a lot of coordination with TxDOT. As you know, this Ditch H project will go under Highway 6 as well as under Highway 59, so it's really important for us to have a consultant that knows how to deal with TxDOT, how to get the permitting process through. So those are just several of the reasons why we selected Pacheco Koch back in 2016 and awarded them the contract in 17. And most notably, they did do the the Brazos River Park irrigation and landscaping contract. So, they're no strangers to the city of Sugar Land. They've actually worked on our projects before. So that is it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Keisha. The reason I pulled this item is I felt it was important not only for the new council members to go back and go through some of the history of the park bonds, but I also wanted to give appropriate credit to Councilmember Porter and Councilmember Gandhi, who pushed this through with this city council and our city manager, Alan Bogart. The action we took this past year with the new budget, with a small increase in the tax rate, allows us to now finish the park bonds, most of the park bonds. There's a few that we can't do because of the Brazos River erosion, but This will now complete the commitment that the council made to the public when we got your authorization to finish the park bonds. So I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion, and I've got a second. Any other discussion? You vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Keisha. Item number 4, contracts and agreements. 4A, consideration of an action on authorizing the execution of a contract with Cigna Healthcare for $1,137,007 for specific and aggregate stop-loss coverage premiums for the self-funded medical plan for the period January 1st, 2020 through December 31st of 2020. We have with us our own Paula Kutchka, Director of Human Resources. Paula.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm here tonight to talk to you about our contract for stop-loss. What is stop-loss? This is a component of our self-funded medical insurance plan. Stop-loss has 2 elements. One is a specific stop-loss. Sorry. Wait just a minute.
Wait a minute, Paula.
Sure.
Thank y'all for coming. I think they may be heading across the street.
There you go. It's a big group. That's awesome to see. Getting back to stop-loss. Stop-loss has 2 elements in our self-funded medical insurance program. The first is specific stop-loss, and this is stop-loss that protects us from an individual catastrophic claim or series of claims. And then aggregate stop-loss, which protects our plan as a group. So to kind of better illustrate what I mean, we have this slide. So self-funded, why are we self-funded? What does that mean? So we have the fixed costs. These are the costs that we know going into the plan year that the city is going to pay. We purchase claims administrator and network access. That is our provider, Cigna. We have stop-loss, the specific and the aggregate stop-loss. That helps provide an additional layer of protection in case we have a catastrophic claimant or series of claimants, or our plan overall functions in a way that it kind of goes beyond what we expect. And then the biggest component of our self-funded medical plan is our medical and prescription claims, which from year to year we can estimate what that will be, but we don't really have a crystal ball to know for sure what that is going to be. This is where the specific and aggregate stop-loss provides us that layer of protection. So just to kind of give you an idea of how our self-funded medical plan has performed in the last, since its inception in 2012, you can see that this chart lists our savings. These are our estimated savings year over year that we have been self-funded. So just as a reminder, these numbers are estimates versus what it would have cost us to be a fully insured plan. So you can see from 2012 through 2017 and our 2019 estimate, because we are still in this plan year, is roughly $2.8 million versus our 2018, that negative number. That is actually a real number. So our plan went above our aggregate expectation for had we been fully insured. So, but you can see overall in the long term, this is a good program. Our self-funded plan allows us to better control our costs versus had we been fully insured, we would have been spending that $2.8 million in addition to what we have spent these past several plan years. So stop-loss coverage, we look at this on an annual basis. Most carriers in the market today will not give us more than a 12-year contract. So each year, starting in late fall, we conduct an RFP process with the help of our benefits consultant. Sorry, it's a little close. Our benefits consultant, Hub International. Hub is an independent consultant to us, so their goal is to look out for our best interest. We conduct the RFP. We look at the vendors that provided information. We do a best and final for the most qualified responses. And through their analysis, HUB has come back to the city and they are recommending that we place our stop-loss coverage with Cigna Healthcare. Those of you who have been on council for a while will remember that when we first went self-funded back in 2012 through 2015, we were with Cigna in the past. Their proposal that we have accepted as their best and final is about a $200,000 increase to premiums. However, we anticipated that. We were prepared because we knew how we had finished 2018, and 2019 was a little rocky from the start, although it is starting to level off. Funding is in the 2012 budget, the 2020 budget, because we had anticipated this and we were prepared for an increase to premiums. We have had conversations with the compensation committee as recently as last week to kind of go over the information and review the recommendation with them. And so with that, we are recommending that council authorize the execution of all necessary documents for a one-year contract in the amount of $1,137,007 with Cigna for January 1 through December 31, 2020 for our specific and aggregate stop-loss coverage.
And Paul, I know this came through the compensation committee. Does somebody from the compensation committee want to address discussion? Jennifer?
Well, this is an important step for us to take to make sure that our employees are protected, our city is protected, and I make a motion to move forward with the approval of this contract.
Got a motion by Lane. Are there any other questions? Anybody? I'll make the second. Got a motion, I've got a second. If you'll vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Paul, the only thing I'd add to the discussion is we've had a significant amount of discussion around, because of our claims history and because of the high claims history, it could be going forward that we would move to a fully insured plan. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different options. Yes. I think we're in the last year of our contract. Could be that it's more favorable to do that. We'll continue to watch how this year works out and how next year claims history comes in, and we could move to a fully insured plan.
Absolutely, sir, and we do monitor it on a very active, ongoing basis as a partnership between Human Resources and the Finance Department with our consultant, and we will be sure to explore all options whenever the time comes. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. Item number 4B, consideration of an action on authorizing the execution of a 5-year contract with Axon Enterprise, Inc. in the amount of $830,695.72 through Texas Buy Board contract number 56818 for the purchase of police body cameras and related accessories and software. And we've got our Chief of Police, Eric Robbins. Eric.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm excited to be here to talk to you about this contract for our body cameras, which is actually, I'm wearing one. Before I get started, I'd like to just actually recognize some of our staff and some of our city staff members who actually worked really, really hard on this program to get it to where we are. And I'll start in-house with my Assistant Chief, Scott Schultz, and some of his staff, Captain Chris Thompson, who's here, Lieutenant Marty Morales. Also on our administrative side is our administrative manager, Larissa Chitsky, who was very instrumental in getting this program together. Our legal team, our assistant city attorney, Ms. Tricia Dang, she actually helped us work this contract down to the finite numbers. Our purchasing with Jason Paskovsky, as well as our risk management, Norman Martinez. Also, we have with us, and I cannot forget him, is Mr. Danny Thieling, who is with Axon, who's actually worked with us, who's our partner in this to get us to where we are. So I just want to thank them for all their hard work. They have done a lot just to get me to stand up here and hopefully tell you a little bit about our body cameras. We recognized that about 6 to 7 years ago, the importance of having body cameras. And it's not only to basically support our officers, but also support our community, to support our citizens that we support, that we go out and we provide services for every day. So actually in 2014, we started with 30 body cameras, and that was to get us, our officers on the street, to have these cameras to literally go out and do investigations, traffic investigations and whatnot. We wanted to increase that. As you know, we got 174 officers now. We had increased it the next year by 30 more cameras. We continued on, as you can see, when we had our annexation in 2017, we had additional 21 officers, so we added 21 more cameras. This last year, we added additional 18. We got that approved in our budget process for an additional 18. So that added it up. But what we realized is that, as you can see with these expiration dates, we had multiple contracts, and all of them were expiring at different times, different dates, even in different years. So what we wanted to do was just consolidate that to one contract. So that's the reason why I'm actually here today, is to get that approved, to hopefully get a consolidated contract. But I can talk all day about body cameras, but what I like to do, and some of you have already seen this, I just want to show you a quick excerpt about what body cameras have done for us. I mean, our officers are out there every day. Like I say, we use them whether it's in investigations, we use it taking statements, we use it collecting evidence, of course with traffic stops and those kind of things when we get complaints. But I'll let this video pretty much speak for itself, and it's a little less than a minute just to show you the importance of what we believe body cameras are for us. And it's going to be some sound. I'll give you a little bit of backdrop. This young lady was driving a vehicle, fell asleep, and drove it into the lake here in Sugar Land and went underwater. And as you can see, they literally pulled her out and saved her life. These officers, Officer Wilkes, Candler, and Driscoll, were actually recognized for their heroic actions nationally as well as locally here in the city of Sugar Land. So I just wanted to show that just so that you can see the appreciation that we have for body cameras. As I told you, we have 154 cameras now, which will allow all our officers, whether they're working part-time jobs, whether they're on the street, working overtime, and et cetera, those officers will have body cameras so that any event that they come in contact with will be recorded. So the goal tonight, again, is to just consolidate those 5 contracts into one. Total of 150. These are the benefits. And this all came out of the negotiations that we had with the camera program. Basically, we got unlimited storage, unlimited licenses. When you start adding all these together and you got these disparate contracts, it really adds up. So we had administrative licenses that we needed. In addition, Axon has agreed to upgrade all the existing cameras we have to the latest technology. By getting a 5-year contract as opposed to having annual contracts, we know, just like cell phones, the technology keeps advancing and we have to keep getting them upgraded. So they have already agreed, and having a 5-year contract will allow us to stay on top of the latest technology, and they have agreed to basically provide that for us. So it's a little bit more cost effective, and it saves us a lot of time, not only with staff, even your time to come here and get a contract approved. So we also looked at, in the event, considering this is a 5-year contract, if we have to terminate the contract, our legal team has basically put in some clauses on what we would have to return, what all this here actually means, because there's some maintenance costs in that as well as some service costs in there that's related and associated as well. So In a nutshell, it's a $130,000 contract, a little over $130,000 contract. Our first year, as you can see, this is what we would have to pay. In addition, this is what we'd have to pay on an ongoing basis. The funding for our first year is already embedded into our contract because of the multiple contracts we already had. So it's embedded into our budget, I mean to say. And then we will have to get a budget adjustment as we move forward, and then it'll be $170,000 a year. So what we would ask for our city council is to authorize the execution of the 5-year contract with Axon for body cameras and licensing in the total amount of $830,695.72. And I'll entertain any clarifying questions.
Questions? No, Chef?
Chief, you said they're going to upgrade. Is that new equipment or a software upgrade?
Absolutely, it's new equipment, new hardware, and on the back end, they will be working with us on the software upgrades as well. But we have what we call, this is a Body Camera 2. The newest technology that's out now is called Body Camera 3, and it keeps changing, and they have agreed to advance us throughout the 5-year period to the latest upgrades.
Follow-up. You showed some expiring contracts in 2022.
Yes, sir.
Are termination fees associated with those contracts?
That was all negotiated, thanks to our legal team once again, but they did come up with some termination. When I showed the termination clauses in there, all that was embedded into the contract with the, we got some actual discounts for some services that haven't been delivered, so we got some discounts and some fees that's been added back into this latest contract. So it'll all be in the 5-year contract.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Carol?
I think it's very important for our police to have these cameras, and it's definitely going to be more cost-effective to consolidate these contracts. So I make a motion to approve.
Got a motion by McCutcheon, second by Kermally. Any other questions? You vote this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, Chief. Item number 5, ordinances and resolutions. 5A, consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Resolution number 1939, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, authorizing the purchase of 0.470 acres of land located in the Imperial Redevelopment District, including the structure known as the Container Warehouse, in the amount of $1. Cam Yurdy, Public-Private Partnerships Manager. But we have, before Cam can take the stage, we've got Miss Elizabeth Huff, our Director of Economic Development. Elizabeth.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager. I want to take a quick second to introduce Cam Yurdy for his first presentation to Council. He joined the Economic Development Department in July and is our P3 Manager. He came to us from the state of Georgia and is a certified planner, has worked on lots of different development agreements, and we're really excited to have him on our team. And he helps us by, he graduated with his master's from Georgia, so we're keeping the SEC rivalry really strong.
There we go.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
LSU's number 1, I think, though, right, Elizabeth? That is correct. Yeah.
For now. Mayor, Council, thank you very much for the chance to present Resolution number 1939, exercising the city's option to purchase the Container Warehouse. Before I begin, I want to take a minute to recognize that we have Mr. Dennis Palmer, President of the Imperial Redevelopment District, and Mr. Jack Lufel, Assistant Secretary of the Imperial Redevelopment District, in attendance. So a bit of background on the Container Warehouse purchase option that we have before you today. In 2016, the city became party to the Third Amendment to the Imperial Redevelopment Agreement. That agreement authorized the development manager of the Imperial property to develop a shell space of the Container Warehouse and convey that ownership to the Imperial Redevelopment District, or the IRD. It also required the IRD to enter into 2 leases, one with the Fort Bend Children's Discovery Center for the first floor of the Container Warehouse, and one with the city for the second floor of the Container Warehouse for a museum and visitor center. That lease agreement that we entered into in 2017 fulfilled the city's decades-long commitment to the creation of a heritage museum in Sugar Land. Both of those leases are $1 per year for 99 years, and the city, after signing its lease, invested in tenant finish-out costs and agreed to a pro rata share of the common area maintenance for its second floor.
Before we move on, I want to take a second to point out exactly where the container warehouse is. It is currently, it is located behind the silo building on the Imperial property, and the exhibit on the right, or the figure on the right side of your screen, is from the Exhibit A in the ordinance or in the resolution. As I mentioned, in 2017, the city entered into a lease agreement with the IRD for a 99-year term for $1 per year. And per that lease, the city has been responsible for the maintenance and repair of the elevator and the second floor HVAC unit, as well as its pro rata share of the other costs associated with the building. That split is 51% for the Fort Bend Children's Discovery Center and 49% for the city. The acquisition terms, I don't know that I'll be able to bring you a better price on a building in my time here at Sugar Land, but there's a $1 purchase price. Our option to purchase expires on December 31st of this year, and we are required to close within 90 days of executing that option to purchase, and we do anticipate a 90-day closing period. A few words about the ownership and maintenance portion of the container warehouse. The city currently funds the operation and maintenance portion, or the city's portion, with HOD funds that are currently built into the budget, and we do not anticipate that that share of expenses will change with ownership. The city would assume management of the Children's Discovery Center lease, and we may in the future decide to negotiate mutually beneficial modifications to that lease. With that, staff recommends approval of resolution number 19-39, executing the city's option to purchase the container warehouse and the .470 acres of land on which it sits. The city manager will be authorized per that resolution to inform the Imperial Redevelopment District in writing and to sign all necessary documents to close on the purchase of the property. With that, I'll take any clarifying questions.
Questions? Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. We have or had for a long time a single electric meter. We're going to split that into 2 meters. Is that going to happen before the sale or after the sale?
So per the lease that was signed in 2017, that is the responsibility of the Imperial Redevelopment District. We have brought that before Chairman President Palmer and Mr. Klufel, and we do anticipate working on getting that taken care of prior to closing on the property.
Okay, thank you. Move to approve.
Got a motion by Porter. Do I have a second? Second. Got a second by McCutcheon. Dennis, you and Jack negotiated a hard deal for $1.
Like Cam said, pretty good terms.
I have to say it is. You vote this time, please. Thank you guys for serving on that board.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item number 5B, consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Resolution number 1938, resolution of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, expressing intent to finance expenditures to be incurred. We've got Ms. Jennifer Brown, our Director of Finance. Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. All right, so this resolution has to do with the issuance of the only remaining bonds that we have to sell this year, which is our water and sewer revenue bonds. Pleased to tell you that we settled our refunding, our COs, and our 4B refunding on Thursday and today. And so everything's done with those. We've got the money in the bank. So the one issue we did not do early in the year was the water and sewer revenue bond issue. And so based on our financial management policy statements, we do finance all of our utility-related projects from the issuance of revenue bonds. We issue bonds to finance projects in order to spread the useful life, spread the cost over the useful life of the projects. And that helps us manage our utility rates so that we're not needing all of the cash up front to fund the projects. These bonds are repaid from charges for services that come through the provision of water, wastewater, and surface water to our customers. And these bonds carry their own bond rating, so they're not associated with our tax-backed bonds. They're not supported by property taxes at all. They carry their own bond rating, and when Standard & Poor's and Fitch were here last fall, they did both affirm their AA+ rating. That forecast at that time did not include the projects from our Integrated Water Resource Plan, and now our 5-year forecast does show those projects, and it does show rate increases that would be needed over the next 5 years to support these projects that will get us to meeting the 60% groundwater reduction mandate. We actually kicked off our utility rate study last week, which was funded as part of the fiscal year 20 strategic projects and in the fiscal year 20 budget. So we'll be looking at our utility rates over the next year to 18 months. So that will be an ongoing process. In the meantime, we have projects that we need to get funded and move forward in fiscal year 20. And so we will have another bond rating review. We usually do phone calls every year, and then a more detailed review about every 3 to 4 years. The fiscal year 20 CIP includes $7.5 million roughly in projects to be funded from the issuance of utility revenue bonds. You all began awarding contracts that were to be funded from these bonds. I believe even the first meeting in October, there was a contract on the agenda for approval. We're planning to sell these bonds in March. We generally time the bond issues to more align when we really need the cash flow. We don't want to put bonds out on the market any sooner than we really need to get them out there. And so with the majority of the projects, we're looking at a March 2020 sale date. With IRS will allow us to move forward with projects that are going to be financed from bonds prior to the sale, as long as we make certain declarations in advance. And so in order to do that, we have to state the city's intent to reimburse ourselves from that future bond proceeds within 60 days of the first expenditure of funds. And so being on the agenda this evening, we're well within that 60-day window. And then we have 18 months from the first expenditure of funds to actually issue the bonds to reimburse ourselves from those bond proceeds. This resolution this evening is only stating the city's intent to reimburse ourselves from the future bond proceeds. It's not authorizing the expenditure of funds. It's not authorizing the sale of the bonds. That will happen at a later date. And then with each contract, with each project, you will authorize the expenditure of funds as those are ready to move forward. So just as a reminder, these are the projects that are funded from the proceeds of revenue bonds, and then we also have $2 million in pay-as-you-go funding for the rehabilitation projects, the WW 2002 and what's the other one? WA 2001, I think. Well, rehab is the other one. So we have $2 million in pay-as-you-go funding that would supplement this funding from the bond proceeds. So Resolution 1938 is before you this evening. It states our intent to finance these expenditures from the proceeds of tax-exempt debt. The amount is $7,548,250, and that allows us to move forward on the projects without holding anything up for the bond sale. We are going to begin preparing the bonds issuance documents probably after the first of the year. We'll start and then plan for a sale early to mid-March. This resolution would be referenced on the tax document that IRS 8038G that goes in the bond transcript. And so it's very important that we have this all documented. And they even want to know at that point when we issue the bonds how much we've spent, how much are we going to be reimbursing. And so they're very particular on making sure we have our T's crossed and our I's dotted and not the other way around. And so I would happy to answer any questions on the resolution.
Questions, Steve?
Thank you. Jennifer, I saw your response to Councilman Jacobson's question, and so I understand the concept here. Of the $7.5 million, how much do you anticipate is going to have to be reimbursed from the bond issue?
It really depends how quickly the projects move forward. So right now, what I've done is I've made the resolution to cover everything. So we could be 100% done with all of these projects prior to the sale of the bonds and be fine. I seriously doubt we will be, because we're going to sell the bonds in about 4 months. But this is just, covering our tracks, just in case for some reason the bond sale were to be postponed for some reason, that we would not hold up any of these projects.
And so the float comes out of the utility fund balance?
Capital Projects Fund. And we have a pooled cash, so we have cash to cover the projects in the interim.
Yeah, I would be interested to see what you think the profile is going to be of the spend and then the reimbursement over the 18 months, I think you said.
But we have to issue the bonds within 18 months. We're planning to do it in March. So I don't anticipate that we will be very far on many of these projects, but wanted to go ahead and get the entire project amounts in the intent to reimburse. This is strictly based on the budgeted amounts.
Okay, we don't pay ourselves interest, do we?
No.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mayor. Move to approve.
Got a motion by Porter. Any other questions?
And this was reviewed with the Finance Audit Committee, I apologize, at their November 7th meeting.
Right. Jennifer, the only question that I have is, does it, given where interest rates are now and what's likely expected to occur next year during the national election, does it make sense to accelerate the sale?
Right now, March is the most logical, most realistic time frame to get it done, with everything else that we have going on, with basically the holiday break, and a lot of people are out of the office. So the plan is, as soon as we get back from Christmas, we'll have our financial advisor and our bond counsel to work getting the documents drafted, and then we'll bring forward the sale.
Yeah, I just ask that we keep that in mind, because it's likely to get
Definitely
pretty nasty next year.
Second.
I've got a second by McCutcheon. Any other questions? Vote this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, Jennifer. Item number 6, municipal utility district bonds. 6A, consideration of an action on Fort Bend MUD number 139, unlimited tax road refunding bonds, Series 2020. Jennifer Brown, our Director of Finance. Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a refunding issue for Fort Bend MUD 139. This is one of the 4 Telfair MUDs. Just a little background, we have 6 municipal utility districts within the city, 4 in Telfair, 1 in Lake Point, and then Bernie Road MUD on the north side of the city. The city has utility agreements with all of these districts. We rebate 50% of the city property taxes that we collect from within the districts back to the districts, and the districts are, by a contract, use that to lower their district tax rates, and that helps to buy down the overall tax burden for the taxpayers that are either the businesses or the residents that are within each district. Part of that agreement under the MUD creation is that the district has to obtain city approval for any bond issues that they do. These are not city bonds, they're the district bonds. The city's not responsible for them, but as part of our overall financial oversight, we have this process so that we can ensure that our residents are being protected from, just looking out for the best interests overall. The districts were created in 2005. The purpose is to provide water, wastewater, and drainage utilities. But those services, they were built by the developers, and the city now runs the utility operations for the districts. This district in particular was 327 acres, and it is located at US 59 and University Boulevard. It's primarily commercial. A lot of it is still undeveloped. It's where the Smart Financial Center and Texas Instruments are located, and where the Fluor campus will be located once they move forward with that. There are 267 residential lots located on 118 acres within the district, and the homes range between $500,000 and $1 million in value. This district participates in TERS number 4, and so amendment number 2 to the developer agreement was approved in April of 2011 by City Council, and it provided the district road bond authority for certain road projects as long as the district participated in TERS number 4 in an amount at least equal to the city's tax rebate. So basically, the district is giving up its city tax rebate for the properties that are within TERS number 4, which is not the whole district, in exchange, and part of that, the city granted road bond authority. And so the part of the agreement was that the developer would construct Lexington Boulevard and the bridge across Ditch H with trails alongside, as well as the Meadowcroft Boulevard and Bridge, which is not in this district. So that overall for the Telfair districts. And so the Meadowcroft Bridge and Westcott Avenue are the particular road projects that are in MUD 138. And for this district, 139, it was Lexington Boulevard and then the Lexington Bridge, and that also involved construction of the trails on the north and south sides of the roadway. The total road bond projects that were approved for both districts was $5.26 million. So this district has $261.67 million in their 2019 certified value. They have a total tax rate of 41 cents, with 27 cents going toward debt service and 14 cents for maintenance and operations. This will be their they have 4 outstanding issues. They've done 1 refunding already, which was the 2019 refunding. This will refund the 2012 road bonds. And so you can see the 2012 original issue is the one that was refunded by the 2019. So really 3 new money issues, and now this is their second refunding. They currently have $12.4 million in debt outstanding. This issue would refund $2.19 million of the Series 2012 road bonds. They're estimating around 4.5% present value savings over the remainder of the maturity structure, about $98,000 all in with the issuance costs. This district carries a Baa1 rating from Moody's, and they anticipate that there will be purchase of insurance that will bring that up to a AA rating. This issue does not extend the maturity structure of the original issue. It still goes to 2037, which was the 25 years from when they originally began issuing bonds. The district approved last week. Is that correct, Christine? Yes. So the district approved the resolution last week at their meeting. They're just waiting on the city to grant approval, and then they're planning to move forward with the refunding. Like I said, this will never be a city obligation unless for some reason we decide to dissolve the district. Right now, the district is in place for financing purposes, and they are paying the debt. Staff reviewed the proposed issue, and we recommend approval by City Council, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. Jennifer, do you know whether they're going to use the savings on this refunding to lower the tax rate for the residents?
I will have to defer to Christine Crotwell on that. She's the district's financial advisor.
That would always be the goal. Obviously, we have an annual process of reviewing the tax rate every year when certified values are out. So obviously, based on that, we've seen a fluctuation in our values in the past 2 years, but always the goal with debt service savings and a refunding is to lower the tax rate and or reallocate, so we're building in more maintenance reserves so we can pay as we go if we have upcoming projects. We do have remaining commercial land that potentially, based on sales of that land, could lead to future developer reimbursements, which this is a board that does not want to have to sell new money bonds in the future. So we have consideration in terms of our maintenance and operation reserves that we can do reimbursements and or pay as you go. So whether maintaining the tax rate at 41 cents or slightly lowering, to be determined, but a refunding will definitely help with flexibility.
Can you identify yourself and what firm you're with?
Christine Crotwell, Masterson Advisors, Financial Advisor for 139.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Motion approved. You got a motion by Jacobson. Do I have a second? Got a second by Porter. You vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Item number 7, workshop. Review, 7A, review of and discussion on a proposed license agreement by and between the City of Sugar Land and Fort Bend Mountain Bike Association for the use, enhancement, and development of the city's single-track mountain bike trails. We have with us our Joe Cheshire, Director of Parks and Rec. So you got it done. Between you and the Parks Board, y'all finally wrestled it to the ground, huh?
We're getting there. So, good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. I do want to clarify this is a workshop item.
I understand.
On it tonight.
No action.
It's not action tonight, just for discussion, so you can ask questions and get clarification. Our intent is to bring it back for hopefully approval at the next council meeting. So what we're going to cover tonight is just the proposed or purpose for the agreement, the need for the agreement, and then the requirements that are in the agreement, and then the review that we had with the Parks Board on this, insurance coverage, and public comments received. And just briefly, I'd like to thank Barbara Brescian, our chair for the Parks Board, not just for her work on this issue, but we've had a very heavy agendas for the last several years, and her leadership's been really great to have on the Parks Board.
Thank you, Barbara.
Appreciate all of her efforts. Just briefly on the background on trails, as you know, we've got trails in parks and neighborhoods and schools along drainage channels. Some of them are concrete, some of them are asphalt, some are decomposed granite. What we're really talking about here tonight is the single track trail, which are more of a nature trail, it's basically a dirt path, generally meanders through a wooded area. It's great for use for running, as you heard tonight, mountain bike riding, just nature discovery, and hiking through our park system. And we're really fortunate here in the city of Sugar Land to have a number of waterways, like the Brazos River corridor and Oyster Creek corridor. Gives us a lot of opportunities for people to get back out in nature. They're just, in some ways, they're hard to access and get to in some areas. As part of the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Master Plan, there was a citizen survey that was done, a statistically valid citizen survey, and one of the highest desired facilities for residents are trails, and that includes both paved trails for hiking and biking, as well as nature trails for biking and nature hikes and things. So you can see that working with an organization helps us achieve one of our goals in our master plan. And it's definitely a low-cost option to work with volunteers to improve these facilities. So as you saw tonight, there's a lot of enthusiasm for the bike trails, and we appreciate the enthusiasm. What we were finding was that we had so many people out in the parks, a lot of various groups doing their own thing, cutting a trail here, cutting a trail there. There wasn't any comprehensive way of looking at it. Our staff would kind of go out and discover things. The mountain bike groups kind of kicked the hornet's nest and upset some neighbors at a location. And so it sort of spurred our need to get together with them and identify an organization, somebody that could be responsible for the work that was going on out there, somebody we could meet with, somebody we could go to. They could organize their their organization. And out of that conversation with some very dedicated individuals, Anthony that spoke here tonight, Ryan Stroll is also a member of their board, they formed and they went out on their own at our request to form a nonprofit organization that would kind of lead the effort as far as building and developing safe trails out in the system and working through the city's organizations to make sure that things are being taken care of properly. They fall under an international organization called the International Mountain Biking Association, which helps set guidelines and standards for how these trails should be developed in a safe and environmentally sustainable way. That led us to the goal, which was to develop this agreement with the help of the city's legal department. Shay Smith drafted it based on our input and input that we received from the International Mountain Biking Association's guidelines, and developed this. And then what we were really trying to do is protect the residents that we had heard from that lived in these areas, and we're just concerned that, you know, that there might be some encroachment into their area. So a lot of this is in response from what we've heard from residents. That they're mostly in favor of it, that we've heard from the residents. They just wanted to make sure that there was a good system in place to manage the trails. So what we would be bringing forward is a grant of license agreement. This is a non-exclusive agreement, meaning that the Fort Hood Mountain Biking Association does not get exclusive use of this area. It's still open for everybody and all of our citizens to get out and use the parks and these facilities. It's just where the trails are, they will have the ability to go in and work on the trails. If they work with us, we can consider adding some additional trails in the future. The agreement would be like a lot of our contracts are. They're a one-year term. Starting on the date that it's executed, and then they would have 4 additional one-year periods to carry forward, and then at the end of that 5th year we would come back and revisit the agreement thoroughly. So one of the items of discussion that was talked about quite a bit at the Parks Board meeting was we've got trails out there now. How do we go about if a new trail was to be developed or a modification of an existing trail, what would be the process to do that? And so working with the Parks Board and based on input, we've come up with this language that's in the agreement. This language, this is a reflection of the language that's in the agreement of how they would go about getting a new trail or a modification of a trail. If they're going into a park with no existing trail at all, the Fort Hood Mountain Bike Association will propose a layout both on a map and then lay it out in the field and flag the route. Park staff will go out and look at it, and if it's a brand new park and a brand new park with a trail going in that doesn't have an existing trail, we'll take that proposed trail to the Parks Board for review and input, and get their input before we go ahead and approve that trail. And then if that trail falls within 35 feet of the back of a residential property line, we'll alert that adjacent homeowner that we're proposing to do this trail in that area to make sure they have a chance to comment on it. And that would be the same if we did a significant reroute of an existing trail within an existing park area. If it's just a modification or a reroute, sometimes what will happen after a strong rain event, sometimes silt will be dropped on the trail or a tree will be down, and it makes sense to reroute the trail kind of on just a short distance around what the previous route was. They'll come to us. They'll still need to flag it out, lay it out on a map, and then we'll give them a response within 30 days on that. There isn't a time limit on the response for ones that have to go to the Parks Board or if we involve a resident. So part of the agreement includes these 4 trails that are in existence now, and these trail maps will become part of the agreement through exhibits included in the agreement itself. Brindley Trail, which was originally our first mountain bike trail as a result of a generous donation from the Brindley family. Back in 2009, we opened this trail up. It was, like I said, it was our first mountain bike trail, and I think it really helped kind of stir interest in mountain biking in Sugar Land and really got the people that were enthusiasts in it branching out, looking for other locations, and starting to really embrace mountain biking in the community. So it was really kind of what kickstarted everything. And so this trail, as it's laid out here, would be part of that agreement and one of our recognized approved trails. The next trail would be our Brazos River Park Trail. If you go down to the park and you go to the bowl or you go to something at the Crown Festival site, you really don't even know these trails are there, but they've become very popular. Probably our heaviest use there at Brazos River Park right now is the bicyclists that get out on these trails and utilize them and help maintain them. So this would be another one of our proposed approved routes. River Park, this is adjacent to the River Park neighborhood off of Grand Parkway. This is Grand Parkway here as it crosses the river, and then the developments here on each side of Grand Parkway and Highway 59 down here at the south end. So these trails were also developed kind of loosely working with a group a number of years ago, and then so they've continued. This one has had some impact from high waters along the Brazos over time. So this is a trail that they use some, but it needs some work, and one of the ones they want to get back up and rideable. The next trail is Oyster Creek Park Trail, and then this is probably the one that's in the closest to residences, although River Park is adjacent to residences across the levee. This one, and we've never really had any issues with those trails there at River Park from the adjacent homeowners there. They seem to really enjoy the trail system. Here at Oyster Creek, this is probably our closest location to homes. And as you'll see, just for clarification, really the green line you see here is the existing paved trail that's there at the park. It crosses over the creek here, comes down, goes into Oyster Creek Park, the loop, the water features here, extends through this area here and back over to Lexington. And then the trail that's being proposed as a single track dirt trail is what you see in the orange here, and it's really an undeveloped or kind of unused, undeveloped areas of the park. We've worked over the years with some Eagle Scout groups to develop some trails in here, but what we find with them, they develop great trails, but they get their badge and then go on, and we don't really have that continuity of people working on the trails and keeping them up. And then, with the weather, trees fall, things happen, so they do need quite a bit of work, and it's really a lot more work than our staff can do consistently. So we're really in favor of working with volunteers to be able to keep these trails up and operational. These trails that are here don't interfere in any way with the soccer activities that go on at Lost Creek Park or any of the activities that go on at Oyster Creek Park. They're very separate from those. And we're working with the bicyclist organization, Fort Bend Mountain Bike Association, to make sure any interaction you would have with the existing trails or uses would be done in a safe manner. And later in the presentation, I've got some signs that I'll show you what will be posted at the trails. At Parks Board, we had quite a bit of communication about the trails and proximity to homes here. So we measured really where the existing paved trails are out at the site and determined where the closest existing asphalt trail is to homes. And this asphalt trail was built originally in right around 1999, opened in about 2000. So it's been there almost 20 years. And it comes as close to 26 feet behind a home. And then in other areas, probably around the 30 to 40 foot range from the back of homes in this area here. So when we started looking at the proposed trails, we determined where the closest possible locations to homes would be. And the closest location we found was down in this area where it would be about 42 feet. Second location was 46 feet. So as you can see, it's further away from the closest areas where the asphalt trail is. So that's how we sort of made that determination that 35 feet from the back of a home seemed like a reasonable distance to consult the adjacent homeowner if a trail is proposed there. And as we stand right now today, there's no trails within 35 feet, no single track dirt trails within 35 feet of the back of a house. This is the rule sign that would be proposed out there. It's similar to what we have at the Brindley Bike Trail, and this is also kind of in keeping with the canoe kayaking signage that we placed than when we spoke to council a while back about the ordinance change allowing canoeing and kayaking in our lakes. On the right-hand side, you'll see what the sign would look like, and then on the left, you can see that's a little more legible. Split it up so it's a little more legible for you to see. But it really talks about uses of the trail, etiquette on the trail, how to look out for others that are on the trail and yielding to them. It talks about these are not at all intended for motorized vehicles, which that falls under all of our parks rules that no unauthorized motorized vehicles are allowed on the sites. It speaks to some of the other things, organized racing. They would not be allowed to do any organized racing out here unless they came to the city first and a whole plan was put together for that. The operations hours will continue to follow the same parks operations hours, which are dawn to dusk. And so there again, it's just really more about training people for proper trail use. And it was good to hear from the runners and hikers that they don't encounter a lot of conflicts on the trail. So we also included a termination policy, or a termination clause rather, in the agreement, talking about if we need to terminate the agreement for any reason, it can be done in 30 days in writing. And then if the Fort Bend Mountain Bike Association does something out on the trails that it could damage the site or is not in keeping with the agreement or what we believe is the appropriate in the park system, we have the opportunity to terminate that agreement immediately. Insurance was a good topic of discussion regarding the work on the trails as well as the riding of the trails. We had assistance from Norma Martinez, our risk manager in the city. She reviewed the proposed insurance from the Fort Bend Mountain Biking Association, which they can get their insurance under the umbrella of the International Mountain Biking Association. So that was submitted to us, a draft of their insurance, and Norma, our risk manager, reviewed that and said it meets or exceeds all the city's requirements. And then one of the requirements in the agreement also is that people that will be working on the trails are required to sign up to be Serve Sugarland volunteers within our Serve Sugarland volunteer program. And so we can track their hours that way and know how much work is going on. And then also, by being part of the Serve Sugarland program, it covers them under the workman's compensation provided through that program. We had extensive conversations with the Parks Board, the last 4 meetings with the Parks Board. We focused on this. There was community input at each meeting, similar to tonight. So the first meeting, we kind of did the general information overview of it. Second meeting, we followed up, really spoke to the insurance and termination clause, and then the review of the process for future trails, which led to some amendments to the agreement, and then looking at the trail maps in general. The city attorney was there, risk manager was there to also kind of alleviate any concerns board members might have. In October, we reviewed all the edits again with the board, received comment, and then at the last meeting, the November meeting, the board voted in favor to recommend the agreement to City Council for consideration. And again, public comment was received at that meeting as well. So what we're proposing is to bring the license agreement forward to City Council at the December 3rd meeting for consideration and action. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Anyone, Carol?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I love it when people get outside and exercise, whether it be biking, running, walking the dogs, or just enjoying nature. And I'd like to thank those who spoke tonight, and I would like to say a big thank you to city staff and the Parks Board and the Fort Bend Mountain Biking Association for all of your hard work on this. I've got a couple of clarifying questions. You said that there were concerns from residents at the first 2 meetings. So do you feel like their concerns have been addressed by the current draft, for the most part?
We've continued to have discussions with those individuals. We reached out to them even last week and let them know that we let them know that the Parks Board made a recommendation to move forward with it, that we were bringing it to City Council this week to workshop and review it. And so we made sure that they were involved all the way along and let them know that the opportunity was there to hear the presentation or to speak on it. And we have not heard any additional correspondence from them. I know even Jennifer May, our Assistant City Manager, has also reached out to them and asked if they would like to meet with us. So we believe we've done our due diligence in trying to address any concerns there may be.
Okay, and one of the Parks Board members voted against bringing this forward. Do you know what the issue of concern was with that?
I don't really want to speak for that individual or that Parks Board member. I just know that what I really tried to express was, I think there was some, it wasn't real specific concerns. There were no, there were concerns, but I mean, there were no amendments made to it through the process or recommended through the vote. There were no amendments made. It was just sort of a lot of the things that I believe the concerns we heard were exactly why we're doing the agreement, because you know, like I said, enthusiasts are great, but sometimes they get a little overly enthusiastic, and I kind of have to be reeled in a little bit. So that's kind of what the agreement is about, is to try to keep people focused, not have any impact or the absolute most minimum impact to any surrounding homeowners or the park itself or the nature that's out there. So I believe strongly that we've tailored a document that can help us manage this.
Great. And then also, the association is supposed to maintain insurance through the IBMA. So every year when when this comes up for renewal, does the city get some sort of notice that the insurance has been renewed for the next term, or how do we know that the insurance is still in place?
We will have to track that and document it and make sure. And it's one of the good reasons there's an annual renewal as part of this. So we will know to always be on the lookout for that. I do believe we get notice when an insurance expires, when we carry that insurance, when we have the documentation, we also get notified that the insurance is expiring.
If you ask them to be named as additional insured, then
correct, and we do. Yes,
okay. And then also, I know that the IMBA and the GQTE standards are going to be used for the trail construction, which is great. And I'm wondering, do those standards also apply to like any ramps, or is it just to the trails? Are there any standards that the ramps will be built in accordance with?
It does speak to that clearly, and the agreement says that they're required to submit a full set of plans and specifications on anything that would go in like that. And then me and William Hodgick, our assistant director, will be reviewing those really for safety and just compliance with what we believe is a building standard, to make sure that they're not an unsafe condition. And if we have people out on the trails a lot, our staff, if we see anything that we think is not built properly, it has to be approved up front, and then it has to be approved after it's in. But if it were to deteriorate over time, we would go in and either have them remove it or we would remove it ourselves. But it does speak to a level in here, which is not, they have levels of challenge of their features, and it's at one of the more moderate levels. And there's also, whenever a feature is built, and this is the same at Brindley Trail, you have what's called a ride around, so people don't have to go on that, whatever that element is.
Right. And then also, in item 6F, it says, if there's a concern that a trail segment could cause opposition from surrounding residents, and then it gives some conditions. Does the Director of Parks and Recreation make the determination that there might be a concern, or who makes that determination?
Well, if it's a brand new trail, or it goes 35 foot to a house, it has to go to the Parks Board. So it becomes it's not just me as the Parks Director making that decision. It will get our Parks Board, our community's voice for Parks and Recreation activities involved to help us make that determination if that's appropriate or not.
Okay, great. Well, I think this is really, I said, a great agreement and great that we'll have additional utilization of our trails out there. And I would like to encourage the Mountain Biking Association in the future to consider hosting a mountain bike festival at the Crown Festival site.
Commissioner.
Thank you, Mayor. Joe, I think you may have covered it during your exchange with Councilmember McCutcheon, but you know, in terms of cleanliness and making sure that it kind of keeps that Sugar Land way of keeping things in an orderly way, if it starts getting out of hand, is it something then what is the process for that to make sure that there isn't debris and those kinds of things that are in the way?
Are you talking more specifically litter?
Litter, yeah.
Litter?
Yeah.
Actually, one of the things we've found with the bicyclists we've worked with so far on these in the past is they don't want to go out there and be riding around in a lot of litter and things, and they've even said that they're very open to, and we've seen them perform litter pickups out there, and we would like to encourage them and work with them, and we'll provide them the trash bags and things if they will pick up litter. But I would not anticipate them being the ones that would drop litter on the trails. Most of our trail users are very respectful. Most of our parks have plenty of trash receptacles in them. Generally, a lot of times what we will see, especially along Oyster Creek, is trash that has come in from the drainage systems that flow through the drainage pipes from neighborhoods on trash day. When we get a big rain, it'll come through the drainage pipe and go down, and they'll get into the stream. And that's generally where a lot of our trash along our waterways comes from. But they've been pretty diligent in assisting in cleaning up trash and having trash cleanups.
Okay, good.
Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Chester, a resident recently expressed a concern to me that such a newly formed organization as the Mountain Bike Association not-for-profit would have too much latitude and control at such an early time in their existence. Aside from maintenance and repairs, is there anything that the organization can do without approval from the city in some form?
Well, even as far as the maintenance part of it, that they will continue to keep us informed of any pickups and things like that. I mean, I think kind of to answer that is it's exactly kind of why we're doing the agreement, so it spells out exactly what our role is, what their limitations are, and what we expect from them. And a lot of this came about from just kind of some of that's going on. You've got a lot of people that are kind of disjointed and everybody kind of does their own thing. And so you end up with some various trails going every which way. And so this is really to try to frame that and get it and make it more manageable. And I think if we don't have this agreement and don't start working with them, that very concern could occur. You're just going to end up with a whole lot out there that we aren't able to manage it, and they really, as a group, can't manage. So I've been really impressed with their commitment to this, the fact that they went out and formed the 501c3. They've organized under the International Mountain Biking Association. I have a lot of confidence in them to live up to the agreement.
Okay, thanks. But there's really nothing that they can't start cutting trails. They can't do anything
not
without
any approvals.
Okay, thank you very much.
Steve.
Thanks, Mayor. Do you have a sense for, we had this number of people out there cutting trails, and we're trying to put this agreement in place with this one organization that has 400 people on it. How much coverage does that give us related to how many people? Do we think there's still going to be people that are outside of this trail group that are still going to be out there doing their own thing?
I can't say that there won't be any at all, but I think this will be this will help control that a lot more than if we don't have it, if we don't have an agreement with them. if we don't have somebody, an organization, a responsible party out there helping us manage and control that, I think we would lead to that more so without having the agreement. And that's exactly why we're pushing forward doing this agreement. So
Yeah,
we can
I mean,
try to manage that more. I mean, it's kind of like with our sports leagues. We've got sports leagues with, 500 and 600 people in them. Each one has a board that we work directly with their liaison, their board, their president, vice president, their liaison. We sort of envision this working a lot the same way. They provide the oversight, the leadership, and then we have a recognized, responsible group that we deal with.
Does the agreement ask the new group to report if they see, to let us know if they see other unauthorized trails being cut?
It will be in their best interest too, because if we go out there and we see another trail cut, that's who we will go to and hold them accountable for it. And so it's in their best interest to manage the own folks within their ranks to keep that from occurring. And if that does occur, generally how you solve that is you take some of the fallen brush that happens every time it rains or the wind blows, and you block off those trail sections. Or if we have to put some post and put a rail up, which we've done, had to do at certain times. So there are ways of managing that.
Yeah, I mean, my concern would be that if the Mountain Bike Association saw someone else cutting trails, we're not expecting them to enforce our policies, are we? To go over there and tell those other people they can't do that, and if they don't stop, something's going to happen. I mean, we're not
asking
this
them
on
to be.
them.
We're not asking them to be the police force for that, but I do think that they could exert, some pressure on the folks not to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that, to me, that would be worth being in the agreement. If it's not, I apologize, I can't remember if it is or not. Just asking them to let us know and let us be the enforcement and not expecting them to go brace up another mountain bike group. I'm sorry, Alan.
I was just going to ask a question to clarify, if possible. I would assume that we have established a practice now that we have a group who is licensed to be able to use our parks in this way. Anyone else who comes in to try it and attempts to try to cut a trail is going to be told they can't do that. So that's,
By us as well as the Mountain Bike
that's the one
Association.
thing that we've accomplished here is we have now established control. We had allowed it to get a bit out of control.
Right.
This is establishing control of it and saying you cannot cut a trail in our parks unless it's associated with this
My concern
group
is-
under this agreement.
We don't want the mountain bike trail people to try to enforce that.
No, I think you've raised a good point about asking for them
it's
to
good.
Yeah.
let us know. I just wanted to clarify that. This
Okay.
is an attempt to bring order to the situation and not allow any other groups to go out and cut trails.
Yeah, I have another question, Joe. One of the rules on the trail says, if they cut unauthorized trails, it's prohibited. Is there any, what consequence is there to doing this this prohibited activity of cutting new trails?
Well, a lot of it is just pointing out the wrongdoing in doing that. Obviously, that if we post it, basically don't do that. They know that they're overstepping their bounds and doing something that's not approved or authorized.
Well, the control is cancellation of the agreement.
Right.
No, I'm thinking about other people.
Somebody outside of that.
Yeah,
and
not the new
I don't
mountain
disagree
bike
that
trail
there
association.
probably there will be a kind of a learning period and a period of having to manage those expectations.
Okay. Last question. If we're going to add 400 people to our volunteer list and our workers' comp coverage, does that change our premiums at all?
I would have to defer to our risk manager on that, and I don't believe she's here.
Independent contractors. They're independent contractors.
Huh?
We'll get that in.
Yeah, I just follow up on that, please.
They would not be independent contractors. All of our volunteers are covered under our policy.
Okay.
But the policy would be different premium for 100
can't
people
answer
versus
that.
400 people, right?
We can get HR to get that information. We'll get it back to you.
Thank you.
Jennifer?
So if I wanted to go ride the trails, would I have to contact then the Fort Bend Mountain Bike Association and become a member in order to go out there to do that?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
It's not it's a non-exclusive agreement. So it's still open to everybody to walk, run, bike, where you can definitely get out and enjoy doing the trails. If you're going to work, if you wanted to do a work party, you would need to join their organization.
Well, just some feedback for the council. I spent about 3 hours with this group along the Brazos River. I did also talk to residents on National Night Out about their concerns about them running the trails behind their neighborhoods. So I've heard like both sides of it, and I've seen it myself. It's a very beautiful place to be on the trails. It's a very tranquil environment. I never knew what was there whenever I would drive across the river, what was under all of that brush, and because I would never see anybody. But I ran into some very mature professional individuals, and it seemed to me that they very much respected the environment and was very thankful to have this available in our area for Sugar Land. And there are people that are come from Katy and Houston and all over around the area to come and ride their bikes. And just as he was talking about the veterans that come out, it helps with their PTSD. I've run into individuals and their bikes are anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000. That's how serious, and that's just one bike. So, like Carol had mentioned, a potential of having a race of some sort or putting on some type of an event. They're very much interested in that and bringing in some revenues from outside of the city into Sugar Land. So I think it's a really good partnership as long as our residents, again, feel comfortable. And I think this is good that we have this agreement in place so that we can, continue on with the Sugar Land Way and provide something beautiful for our residents.
Joe, what I'm hearing is everybody's, in favor of moving forward, subject to Steve's comment about, I think, providing some input if in fact there is an issue.
We'll get that answered.
And then Meredith, you'll get back to Steve on what the impact is on workman's comp rates. Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Item number 7B, review of and discussion on extraterritorial jurisdiction utility extension requests and proposed draft development agreement. We have Lisa Kosich-Meyer, our Director of Planning. Lisa.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. So we are here tonight to talk to you about utility extensions in the ETJ. And to just start off, I want to give you a little bit of a background on this topic. So over time, the city has recognized that there are benefits to partnering with property owners in the ETJ on their utility service requests, and also balancing that with the need to protect city interests. And so property owners are wanting to make improvements to their properties, and that's a positive thing. But that also provides us the opportunity to extend some control, especially in the ETJ where we have very limited ability to control things. And especially that's really beneficial when those properties are adjacent to properties in the city. And then more recently, this will give us an opportunity to address some limitations that state law has placed on us with some of the recent legislative changes specifically related to annexation. So over time, the city has developed ordinances and policies to address and guide the city in responding to some of these utility requests. So for this workshop this evening, I'm going to review some of the existing code and policy guidance, overview a specific request that has come forward, outline our approach and review with you some agreement points that we've worked through, outline next steps, and then this is a workshop, so I am interested in soliciting your feedback on the proposed agreement points and the approach that we are taking. So kicking off with the existing guidance we have in our Code of Ordinances a section that addresses approvals for extension of our services, water and wastewater service, utility services to areas outside of the city. Couple of criteria that are reviewed. We want to ensure that the city actually has capacity to serve these areas and that they are within our ETJ, so we can lawfully serve these areas. We also want to ensure that the applicant can cover the cost to install all of the required lines to extend the service to their property. And so we work through or the code outlines that this must be in writing, that they will comply with all of the building codes, any city applicable ordinances to receiving that service, and that also the city can require any extensions be constructed that are oversized, and that we would enter into a cost participation agreement for those oversizing costs. Additionally, the Code of Ordinances also addresses rates for out-of-city service, and so it essentially establishes that customers that are outside of the city and receiving the water or wastewater service will pay double the rate that our in-city customers pay. Moving to our development code, there is a section under Chapter 5, which is our subdivision regulations, which essentially codifies our ability to enter into agreements with property owners in the ETJ and authorizes our ability to enforce land use and development regulations through those agreement terms. And then lastly, City Council has adopted or approved a resolution which outlines annexation, full purpose annexation of areas located in the city's ETJ that are not located in municipal utility districts. So we refer to these as non-MUD ETJ areas. And this resolution outlines the procedures for how these areas should develop prior to annexation. And so it essentially establishes requiring urban standards for access and utilities through the subdivision process, but then also when municipal services are requested, the city should require petition for annexation prior to those services starting. So to the specific request that is before the city, we have been working with the Mariam Islamic Center. They in total own approximately about 19 acres within what we refer to as the New Territory Outtract or Donut Hole. So this is an area, this is the overall area of that donut hole or outtract. The area shaded in blue is the approximate 19 acres that is owned by the Mariam Center. This area was not part of one of the New Territory municipal utility districts which surround this area, so therefore was not annexed as part of the annexation in 2017. They are currently served by on-site well and septic, and they have brought forward the request that connecting to the city's wastewater system would avoid some costly on-site upgrades to their sewer system and septic system, and obviously some ongoing maintenance costs associated with that upgrade. And then likewise, the ability to connect to the city's water system would give them a reliable source for fire suppression and also replace the use of their on-site well. They also have some future expansion plans, and this would allow for the city to work through those additional demands and capacity moving forward. So working with the Mariam Center, and I should mention that we do have representatives from the Mariam Center with us this evening. Hello, yes. And so we have worked with them. They have outlined what their demand needs are, and they have refined that over time. And working with them through that analysis, we have determined, staff has determined that the city does have capacity to serve their needs. And essentially we developed kind of a two-pronged approach. First was the interim or initial approach, which would serve their current needs, as well as establishing kind of the longer term, more of a future regional solution based on what their future needs might be and that of the entire kind of outtract area. This future regional solution will also be further vetted and reviewed through the wastewater master plan update, which is currently underway. So utilizing their analysis and then all of the previous kind of guidance and policies and ordinances, we drafted development agreement points that I will review with you now. So kind of broken up the next couple of slides into the responsibilities that the Merriam Center would have under the agreement, and then likewise what the city's obligations would be. So looking at what the Merriam Center would be responsible for is covering all of the costs associated with extending the utilities to their property. So that includes things like obtaining infrastructure, construction plan approval, acquiring, dedicating any easements. We, of course, would offer our assistance in helping to negotiate those easements with any off-site private property owners. They would also, upon connecting to the city, eliminate the use of their existing well. They would be responsible for paying the out-of-city rate as set by ordinance, complying with all of our city ordinances and codes, for any new construction complying with any of our land use requirements, including obtaining building permits and inspections. Furthermore, looking to kind of the future as they have any expansion that would exceed their current demand, that would trigger the regional wastewater solution. And at the time that that would be constructed, they would be required to connect to that regional system. As part of that regional solution, they would dedicate a site and any easements that are necessary. They would pay their share of the regional lift station costs, as well as any connection fees. And then lastly, they would be required to also petition the city for annexation and agree that a future effective date of no sooner than 10 years from the approval of that annexation ordinance would be the effective date of annexation. Looking at our city obligations, obviously we'd be providing them water and wastewater service. We would process the annexation, setting that future effective date. Also, reimbursing them for any oversizing costs, and then taking on the responsibility of designing and constructing that future regional lift station to serve them in the area. We did have the opportunity to review this request and the draft points with the City Council's IG subcommittee in September and October, and the committee was generally supportive of the request and the outlined agreement points. Subsequently, we also reviewed the points with the Merriam Center representatives. They generally concurred and were accepting of the points. They did highlight one element was they preferred, if possible, for the city to manage the water line construction project, and that they would pay their costs to cover that. So this is one detail we are still finalizing, and language can either be added to this agreement or to a supplemental agreement. And this is something the city has done on occasion for smaller scale type projects in the past. We do anticipate that there will be additional requests coming forward. We are currently working with another property owner in our city's ETJ, and so we would recommend that we utilize kind of the same approach of a development agreement and utilizing any applicable terms with any new requests that come forward. So in closing, again, we have recognized that there are benefits to going through this approach of and recommend that we use this approach going forward. Again, we do have property owners that are wanting to make improvements, and this is seen as a positive thing and gives us the opportunity to address several of the items that we've included into the terms of the agreement, including protecting areas that we don't have a lot of control over, as well as being able to establish some annexation terms where we have now limited abilities to do unilateral annexations based on some recent legislative changes. So pending City Council's feedback this evening, we do anticipate we would bring back the approval of the agreement at your December 3rd meeting. And the agreement is attached to your agenda item, and be happy to answer any questions you may have on it. And as well, when we do have additional requests and agreements, we will bring those forward to you for consideration at a future date. So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Lisa. Questions? Steve? Okay.
My apologies, you called me with a cough drop in my mouth. Lisa, are there any residents in this tract?
They are not, no.
All right, this is 100% owned by the center?
Correct.
Okay.
For the 19 acres that we have been working, yes.
So what, I didn't quite follow the concept of they want to pay their costs, which would leave our costs. I mean,
You're talking
one or
about,
two slides back where they were saying they only wanted to pay their costs.
that would be, if the city manages the construction project, they would be responsible for covering all of those costs. We would just be managing the project. The other opportunity, I guess, option would be is they manage the contract and obviously pay for all the costs. So it's the management of the actual construction.
All right, I misunderstood that. So this is just for the water to start with and wastewater later?
It would be both. There would be a water line, and then there's an existing lift station in the area what they would be connecting to for their wastewater service.
Okay.
At the point that they exceed their current analysis or current demand, that's what would trigger the regional lift station, which would serve them and potentially the surrounding area as well.
And or another client, if there were another request.
Correct.
In the area, to your example.
Correct.
If there was someone else that came forward, you've got all that property there. You know, the benefit, quite frankly, of this, Steve, in the regional lift station, is that at such time as that additional property would come into the city, then you have those facilities designed to serve it.
Yeah, no, I'm in favor of this. I just had the recent, thank you very much, Texas legislative changes on annexation. It refreshed my memory, but I thought no matter what our agreement says, that there still has to be a vote on the other end.
No, there are a couple of ways. There are property petition. Meredith, if you want to jump in, please. But there are property petition, so the property owners can petition. But then the other ways would be by property owner consent. And so that would be in the form of requiring a vote of those property owners or voters in that area. But there is still the option of a property owner petitioning to be
Strategic
added to the
partnership
city.
agreement.
Yeah.
Well, that or that's more with a municipal utility district or another entity, but this would be there's still the option that an individual property owner can petition to be added to the city.
Okay, thank you very much.
So that was preserved. Mhm.
Carol.
Thank you, Mayor. So would the city be providing a blend of groundwater and surface water? Because I know in Greatwood it's just groundwater. So what type of water would be
So this would be
provided?
in the new territory area, and there's an existing water plant, and I will have to, I believe it is just groundwater, but I know Brian can answer that.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Brian Butcher, Public Works. Currently, New Territory is wholly served by groundwater, but with the IWRP and the upcoming changes, we will most likely be taking surface water out there. So in the future, it will be served by a blend, but currently all groundwater.
Okay, so in the near term, you'd have to increase the amount of surface water someplace else then, because that'll be all groundwater initially.
The impacts of this water are negotiable, less than 4 or 5 homes, so it really is negligible.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And then to follow up on Steve's question, so if the city actually manages the construction contract, so then the city would get reimbursed for the construction management costs.
Correct.
Okay.
That is
Thank you.
correct.
Good. No shot.
Lisa, you mentioned there's no other residents in this block. Is that right? That will not get benefit from it?
Well, there aren't any residential properties on the 19 acres that the Merriam Center owns. There are residential properties in the Outtract area, but our agreement is with the Merriam Center.
But by them connecting to our line, will the residents gain any use of our water at the?
They would need to come through the city to connect. And so we would work out similar agreements or whatnot to work through all the other terms and conditions for connecting to the city system.
I know I had a conversation with Assistant City Manager Chris about this as well. being a nonprofit and being a church or a synagogue or a mosque in this instance, is there a reason that we have to charge 2x on the water charge? Do we have to charge that, or is there a way that we can get around that?
That is
being a
the
nonprofit.
That is the Code of Ordinances requirement. Now, that is something I guess the city council consider longer term. That's a bigger, probably picture discussion outside of this one individual user. Perhaps through the utility rate study, that is something that could be discussed in terms of if there are different types of rates for different types of users. But right now, that is our city code, and that's what we would recommend applying.
Al.
If I could add one thing is, I would assume that the agreement would have whatever the ordinance required rate is, not 2 times. So it'll say whatever the ordinance is. So as time goes by, if y'all change the ordinance,
Correct.
it'll decide what the rate is.
Correct.
Everybody good with moving forward?
Yes.
Lisa, I think you've got your
Great.
direction.
We'll be back in December. Thank you.
Item number 8, City Council City Manager reports. We'll go to the City Council member reports. Stuart, let's start with you.
Forgive me, Mayor, it's been 6 weeks since my last report. I have an entire list that I've typed up for you.
Keep it brief.
But I just want to tell you about two really interesting events. Yesterday, I attended the ribbon cutting of the Just Go supermarket in Hospitable District 3. Not hospital.
How could I have
Hospitable District 3.
How could I
And
have
this
guessed?
place is amazing. I encourage everyone to go check out the Just Go supermarket. It caters to our Asian residents, but you'll just find an amazing experience when you go there. The other thing that I did a couple of days ago is a constituent took me on a tour of some sites that pick up a lot of litter, mostly along Dulles, and he wants to start a campaign, an organization for dog walkers who collect litter. He wants to do this whole thing himself. In fact, there's even a name for this. It's called dog plugging. It's a thing. But anyway, I'm working with Environmental and Neighborhood Services to see if we can't take up this resident on his offer.
I'm sure
And that's-
Stacy's excited about it.
That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Yes. Carol.
Okay, well, I attended a Commonwealth Elementary Bike Walk to School event, and I went to the Classic Chili Challenge benefiting the Fort Bend County first responders. And I had my shovel out for the Dean Law Firm groundbreaking in Greatwood. And along with the mayor and first lady, attended Taiwan's National Day of the Republic of China, also known as the Double 10 celebration. And I gave welcoming remarks at the 2019 Indonesian Festival that was held right here in Town Square. And it was held in Sugar Land for the very first time, so we stole it away from Houston. And attended the Big Taste of Texas at Constellation Field, benefiting Big Brothers, Big Sisters. And I got to attend Imogene Andrews' 102nd birthday party. And she did not look a day over 90. She really looked great. And I did the proclamation on behalf of the mayor at the Sugar Land Rotary Veterans Day celebration. And then I gave the welcoming remarks at the Houston Filipino Street Festival. And again, that's something that had been in Houston before, but was moved to Constellation Field for the very first time. And I went on a tour this morning of the Parish Power Plant, and that's the plant across from the George Ranch Historical Park that generates the electricity. And that's about a third of the things on my list, so I'll conclude with that.
That's great. Jennifer.
I attended an event with the Friends of the Sugar Land Heritage, and we talked about all the history of Sugar Land. I attended Senior Serve at George Ranch High School, which was very fun, and the Veterans Day celebrations with the Sugar Land Rotary, along with Carol McCutcheon.
Steve.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll highlight Sugar Land Museum of Natural Science is having their end-of-year fundraiser called Jingle Tree. They also have opened their new exhibit, or at least it looked like it to me. I would encourage anybody that hasn't been there in a while to take advantage and go back to the Sugar Land Museum of Natural Science. Coming up, Best of the West fundraiser for the Ark as a guest of my colleague, Councilmember Jacobson. Thank you very much.
No, sure.
Mayor, I'll keep it short, but I do want to emphasize I attended the First Colony Homeowners Association. Carol, you were there as well, Volunteer Appreciation Night, which was nice to see them coming together. This morning I attended the Houston-Galveston Area Council meeting on behalf of the city and represented us there. I also attended with you the MIAC induction, which I think is important. These are future leaders. These are juniors in high school, and I just love the young individuals, and I want to make sure I show my support to that. I think most importantly, I want to thank the staff for these past 4.5, 5 months, because Stuart Jacobson and I have officially finished all of our orientations. So no more Kayla invites.
Phase 2 is good.
Oh yeah, believe me, she sent us plenty. But I want to thank the staff and everyone behind the leadership, and let your staff know they really put a lot of time and effort behind all these presentations, and I know they worked with our crazy schedules, or my crazy schedule, and my demands for 8 a.m. meetings, but thank you all very much for that.
I'm going to highlight two things. Chris Steuben and Rick Ramirez have been, Rick and I had lunch with Senator Kolkhorst. Lois, there were two reasons for the lunch, and one was to solicit her support for the Brazos River Erosion Project, and the other was to get her input on how we could repair, not just Sugar Land, but all the cities and the counties, repair the relationship with the state. And we got some good feedback on that. Chris has been working diligently with Greg Wine. I think we've made some real progress on the Brazos River Erosion Project. We met with Council members Vincent Morales, or Commissioners Vincent Morales and Kenda Merchant, and we are fast moving toward financing, applying for financing from the Texas Water Development Board. We'll also solicit financing when the federal funding comes through, when the governor gets through messing around with it. So we look forward to getting that accomplished. We'll keep everybody updated as to progress on that. That's a very, very important, significant piece of what we're working on right now. Alan.
Mr. Mayor, a couple of reminders. The 6th annual Sugar Land Holiday Lights event kicks off this Friday, November 22nd, and runs through January 5th at Constellation Field. I would encourage folks to take advantage of the opportunity to see 3 million lights creating themed holiday displays through the holidays. So please take advantage of that wonderful opportunity right here in Sugar Land. I'd remind you that city offices will be closed next Thursday, November 28th, and Friday, November 29th, in honor of Thanksgiving holiday. And you will remember that we canceled our Tuesday council meeting next week, and therefore your next council meeting will be Tuesday, December the 3rd. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Alan. Motion to adjourn. That wasn't too bad. Thomas?